You were never meant to hear this. That's not a warning. It's a fact. In the year 1889, something was buried, sealed away by the Kansas State Medical Board. No headlines, no trial, just silence. The few pages that survived were found decades later, hidden inside the walls of a farmhouse that had burned from the inside out. One doctor left a final note. 5 words. They were born fundamentally wrong. Not infected. Not cursed. Wrong. This isn't folklore. It's not a legend passed down by old farmers or wide-eyed children. This is a rupture in reality, where faith, blood, and something ancient collided. And 4 brothers stood at the center. Ezra, Caleb, Josiah, Abel Blackwood. They were not like other men, and after that summer, they were no longer men at all. Listen carefully. The records? Destroyed. Church books? Erased. 3 licensed physicians vanished after signing official oaths, vows of silence enforced by someone watching from above. That's not paranoia. That's compliance. Because this story is not about disease. It's about transformation. The kind no one dares classify. The kind that breaks the rules of flesh. Cedar Ridge, Kansas, was not a quiet town. It was a threshold. And what came through wasn't natural. The Blackwood Brothers didn't survive the fever. They became something else. So I'll ask you once. If you still trust history, if you still think science has all the answers, if you still believe that the church protects the truth, you should leave now. But if you've always felt there's something deeper, beneath the stories, behind the masks, watching you from behind the veil, then stay, because once you hear what comes next, you will never be able to go back. And that is exactly the point. The town of Cedar Ridge wasn't built for secrets. It was a scattering of wheat fields, cattle fences, and Methodists. 300 souls, 1 church, 1 schoolhouse, 1 general store, and nothing but silence between. But in that silence, something watched. And when the typhoid came, it didn't behave like any disease they had seen before. It moved fast, too fast. The first to fall was Sarah Hartman. She smiled at customers in the morning. By sunset, she was burning alive from the inside out. Rose-colored blotches spread across her skin in perfect symmetry, like something was writing on her body. By midnight, she was dead, but her eyes kept opening. Dr. Samuel Morrison had seen fevers before. He trained in Philadelphia. He knew medicine. But this was different. Within 2 days, 3 more people died. Heinrich Zimmermann, an old German farmer, was next. He spoke in tongues no one could recognize. Some say it was Latin. Others said it was older, something with no vowels, a language that made dogs howl and milk spoil. Then the Patterson twins, 16 years old, both dead by sunrise. Their final moments were synchronized, 2 voices speaking the same words in perfect unison, chanting something no human throat should be able to produce. The town shut down, doors locked, curtains drawn. Cedar Ridge was no longer afraid of death. It was afraid of whatever was behind it. But the Blackwood farm, it stayed untouched. No sickness, no symptoms, not a single cough. They walked through town without fear, eyes pale as winter, silent, measured, watching. Men started whispering, saying the brothers had prayed so hard they were immune, that God had blessed them, chosen them. But others said the fever didn't touch them, because it came from them. The chapel on their land had no cross, only a spiral, carved in stone above the door. No one remembered or read them carving it. No one dared to ask what it meant. But those who saw it said it moved, not like a trick of the eye, but like it was breathing. And after that, no one went near the hill, because, deep down, they knew something was wrong, very wrong. The fever didn't touch the Blackwoods, not one cough, not one night of chills. While dozens in Cedar Ridge were buried under frost-covered soil, the four brothers continued their daily rituals like nothing had changed. But something had changed. And it started with their shadows. Neighbors began to whisper, not because of what they saw, but because of what they didn't. The brothers walked through sunlight, and their shadows didn't fall right. Not behind them, not in front. Sometimes, not at all. Animals began to react first. Dogs refused to cross their path. Horses refused to pull their wagons. Livestock cried out at night for no reason, looking toward the hilltop chapel as if something was standing there, watching them. And then came the sound. It began as low humming during evening prayers, a harmony only the brothers could hear. But soon, it grew louder. Even those in town claimed they heard it, a deep metallic vibration drifting on the wind at night. Dr. Morrison returned to the farm after the 23rd death. He needed answers. Instead, he found transformation. Ezra greeted him at the gate, his face calm, his voice polite. But something was wrong with the way he spoke. It wasn't just words, it was pitch, tone, resonance. The doctor later described it as harmonic dissonance, like four voices speaking in one. When he entered the chapel, he saw all four brothers kneeling. But they weren't praying, they were humming. And that spiral above the altar, the one carved into stone, was glowing, not glowing with fire, not with candlelight. It pulsed, like a heartbeat, like it was alive. Josiah turned his head, and the doctor swore his eyes flashed silver, not a reflection, not a trick of the sun, but something cold and calculating. Then Abel spoke, just one sentence. The pattern has chosen us. That was all. The doctor left without saying a word. But in his notes, the last he ever wrote, he scribbled 3 times. They're no longer fully human. By mid-September, the deaths in Cedar Ridge slowed. But something worse took their place. Whispers. People stopped speaking the Blackwood name. They didn't forget it. They feared it. Benjamin Hartman, the storekeeper, told his brother-in-law he saw Ezra Blackwood standing in the middle of his field, in the middle of the night. No lantern, no tools, just standing, looking at the sky, mouth open, like he was listening to something no one else could hear. The next morning, all of Hartman's cattle were dead. No wounds, no signs of struggle, just collapsed, as if their hearts had stopped at once. Then came the voices. Children reported hearing singing from the Blackwood property. Not hymns, not words, tones, long, perfect tones that vibrated in their chest bones. Some cried. Some became violently ill. One child, Thomas Bailey, age 7, started drawing spirals over and over again, on walls, on furniture, on his skin. He carved one into his arm with a nail. When asked why, he simply said, "They told me I had to." When Dr. Morrison returned, against his own instincts, he noticed changes in the brothers' physiology. Their skin had gone pale, almost translucent under the sun. Their pupils now reacted to moonlight, more than sunlight. Their fingerprints were gone. He wrote it like a checklist. No shadow, no fingerprint, no body heat. Josiah no longer blinked, Abel's heart rate was less than 30 beats per minute. Caleb's body temperature measured at 70 degrees. And Ezra's breath fogged mirrors. In reverse. Not outward. Inward. Like he was inhaling the world around him, feeding on it. Still, they were calm, polite, helpful. They offered tea. They spoke in perfect measured tones. But when they looked at you, you felt it, like being studied by something that remembered being human, but wasn't anymore. One final note from the doctor. They do not appear diseased. They appear aligned. Aligned with what? He didn't say. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he was afraid to write it down, but those who listened closely said the brothers no longer prayed. They recited, as if reading instructions from something ancient, something that had finally answered. It began in the chapel, not with a vision, not with a voice, with geometry. Caleb had been studying rainfall patterns during the drought, but something was wrong with the numbers. Too perfect, too clean. The storms were arriving in intervals, even spacing, like the sky itself had fallen into rhythm. He mapped it out. 10 days between rainfall, 10 degrees cooler each night, 10 birds found dead near the well, always 10. Then Josiah began hearing tones, not voices, not thoughts, just sounds. He said they vibrated through the floorboards of the chapel, like the limestone had become a tuning fork. He began writing in spirals, not letters, not words, just endless spirals, one inside the other. Abel claimed he saw light during prayer, not sunlight, not candlelight, a cold, violet light, rising from the stone itself. He called it the eye of the pattern. That's when the dreams began. All 4 brothers reported identical visions of a vast chamber underground, black soil, stone walls, and a pulsing spiral shape carved into the earth. No fire, no sky, only rhythm. A slow, measured pulse, not felt by ears, but by bone. Ezra began waking up covered in dirt, fingernails black with soil, toenails cracked like he'd been walking barefoot through gravel. But the farm was spotless. Then came the birds. They fell from the sky, hundreds at once. No blood, no trauma, just stillness. When the townspeople found the bodies, they said the birds were all facing east, toward the Blackwood chapel. The spiral above the chapel door, it had changed. No one carved it, but it had changed. It had grown, split at the ends, twisted back into itself, like it was no longer a symbol, but an invitation. Something intelligent was watching them, not from the sky, from below. It didn't speak in words. It spoke in structure, pattern, sequence, harmony. And the Blackwood Brothers, they had started to listen. They were no longer worshiping. They were aligning. They didn't find the chamber. They were led to it. In late October, Ezra had begun walking the fields alone. Every morning, always barefoot, always in silence. He wasn't planting. He wasn't inspecting. He was following something. Something he could feel beneath the soil. He marked spots with smooth river stones, arranged in spirals. 13 of them, exactly 13. And on the 13th day, he brought a spade. He dug in silence, and 6 feet down, he struck stone, not a rock, not a boulder, a doorway. Buried in the Kansas dirt was a limestone slab, carved with the same spiral seen above the chapel, but this one was older, cracked, weathered. There were no hinges, no seams, just pressure points. When they applied equal weight from each corner, the stone slid away, like it had been waiting. Beneath it, a narrow shaft, stairs chiseled by hand, leading straight down. No torch soot, no animal remains, just cold air rising from below. They descended in silence, one by one, each brother holding a lantern. The walls were carved with identical spirals, thousands of them, each one subtly different, each one unique. Caleb said it felt like walking through thought. Not a tomb, not a ruin, something else, something alive. At the base of the staircase, they found it. A chamber. Circular. Perfect. No tools had made it. No hands had shaped it. In the center, a stone altar, low, black, polished like glass, and resting on it, a single object. Not a book, not a relic, a stone, spherical, warm, and humming. The moment Josiah touched it, his nose began to bleed. Abel collapsed, seizing. Caleb whispered numbers in a language no one had taught him. And Ezra smiled. For the first time in his life, he felt something looking back. It didn't speak. It aligned. And in that moment, the spiral was no longer a symbol. It was a blueprint, a code. And their bodies had begun the translation. Cedar Ridge changed. Not slowly, not gently. It broke. The townspeople began reporting echoes, in wells, in barns, in the woods behind their homes. Echoes of voices that hadn't spoken, echoes of footsteps that weren't there. The preacher, Father Calloway, stood in front of his congregation one Sunday and wept, not out of fear, not guilt, but confusion. He said he could no longer hear God, only the humming. That same deep mechanical hum that now rose from the earth every night at 3:33 a.m. Always 3:33. He tried to warn them, tried to fight it, but 3 days later, he walked into the river wearing his full vestments and never came back up. The town doctor, the undertaker, the school teacher, each began showing signs of something unnatural. Nosebleeds, vivid shared dreams, obsessions with numbers, with circles, with bone arrangements in strange patterns. Children stopped speaking altogether. Instead, they hummed. One tone, in unison. Animals miscarried. Milk soured in the pail. Crops grew fast. Too fast. Then withered to ash. And no matter where you went, no matter what time of day, you could feel it. A vibration. Under your feet, inside your teeth. The town held a vote. They wanted the Blackwoods gone. They sent 5 men to deliver the verdict. Only 2 returned, and neither could speak. One gouged out his own eyes within a week. The other disappeared into the woods and was found months later, curled in a spiral of twigs and blood, smiling. They tried to burn the chapel, tried to salt the fields, but the flame would not catch, and the ground would not take salt. Then someone noticed something horrifying. The pattern on the chapel door. It had moved again. It was no longer a spiral. It was an eye, open, watching. Josiah was seen walking the town that night. He stopped at the schoolhouse, placed his palm on the bell, and whispered, "The harvest begins soon." No one knew what that meant, but the humming, it was getting louder. They called it the harvest, but no one planted it, no one asked for it. It came anyway. On November 12th, the air changed. Colder, still, like something enormous had taken a breath and was holding it. Birds vanished. Dogs howled through the night, then stopped. All at once, at dawn, the Blackwood Brothers stood in the chapel yard, silent, barefoot, unmoving. Each held a lantern, not lit, just held, like they were waiting for a signal. Then, it began. 12 townspeople, selected at random, old, young, sick, strong, rose from their beds at exactly 3:33 a.m., not screaming, not panicked, calm, eyes open, mouths closed. They walked, out of their homes, into the woods, past the chapel, straight toward the old Blackwood fields, toward the stone gate that marked the entrance to the underground chamber. No one stopped them. No one could. The rest of the town watched, paralyzed. Witnesses said the 12 stood in a perfect spiral around the entrance. Then they knelt. Hands on the earth, faces toward the rising sun. And one by one, they began to hum. Not words, not songs. The tone. That same low, unnatural vibration that had haunted the town for months. Then, silence. The ground split beneath them, gently, as if the soil itself had accepted their offering. They were swallowed. No blood, no collapse, just gone. Gone. The field sealed behind them, smooth as glass. The spiral on the chapel door changed again. It no longer faced outward. It had turned inward, folded into itself. A sign the first cycle was complete. Ezra spoke that night. For the first time in days, he stood in front of the townspeople and said, "You feared the end, but you were wrong. This is the beginning." And behind him, on the chapel wall, a new spiral began to form. This one deeper, more jagged, like something was climbing out of it. They weren't chosen by accident. The Blackwoods were placed, planted, like seeds. They came to Cedar Ridge in 1881, but not from any known county. No records, no birth certificates, just the deed to a chapel that hadn't been built yet, and a map that led to nothing, or so it seemed. A letter was found decades later, sealed behind a chapel beam, addressed to no one, signed by no hand. It read, "They will come in 4. They will hear what must be heard. They will break the seal, and the soil will remember." The soil. That phrase kept coming up. The soil will remember. Not the town, not the people. The soil. Something had been here before the settlers, before the tribes, before the ice. It slept beneath the limestone, coiled in patterns not meant for sight, spirals that stretched across centuries of memory. It wasn't a god. It wasn't a demon. It was older, quieter, patient, and it needed mouths. Not to speak, but to echo. That's what the brothers were. Echo chambers, vessels grown with just the right silence in their bones. They didn't worship it. They didn't control it. They amplified it. And Cedar Ridge was the speaker box, a town built to project the spiral, a grid of streets laid in sacred geometry, homes positioned to align with the old wellsprings, the chapel acting as a tuning fork. Every town ritual, every tradition, had been preparation. Even the winters, especially the winters, because in the cold, the pattern spread faster, cracks in the walls, lines in the frost, rings in the firewood, all matching, all exact. On December 21st, the longest night of the year, the spiral finished forming on the chapel ceiling. No one carved it. It appeared, dripping, black, wet. And on that night, everyone in Cedar Ridge dreamed the same dream. They stood in the field, alone, buried up to their necks, and something below was sparing, in their own voices, overlapping, repeating, until they woke, dishy screaming, or silent, but never the same. The last 3 days were not counted on any calendar. Time stopped in Cedar Ridge. Clocks spun backward. Roosters crowed at dusk. The sun hung too long in the sky, then vanished without warning. Daylight became optional. The Blackwood brothers no longer spoke. They didn't need to. By then, the town had learned to listen without ears. The spiral was in the floorboards, in the water, in the teeth of the children. People didn't die anymore. They just stopped being seen. Doors left open, beds still warm, but the people inside, gone, and no one asked why. Because somewhere inside, they knew. It wasn't a curse. It was fulfillment. On the final night, snow fell upward, not fast, not violent, just upward, like gravity had been told to stop pretending. A boy named Eli was the last to speak, 6 years old, mouth stained with berries no one remembered planting. He walked to the center of town, naked, calm, and said, "It's full now. It's listening." Then he laid down in the snow and sank, not into the ground, into the air, like the space around him folded in. One by one, every building followed. The chapel bell was the last sound, a single stretched chime that never faded, just held and held and held until Cedar Ridge was gone. No smoke, no rubble, just fields, silence, and a stone spiral, half buried in frost. Authorities claimed the town was lost to fire, but there were no ashes, no records, only the name scratched off county maps. The train line rerouted, the birth certificates quietly destroyed, but the spiral, it remained. And those who wandered too close, archaeologists, surveyors, wanderers, never returned the same. Some went mute. Some drew endless circles on walls until their fingers bled. One man carved his own spine with symbols he swore were instructions. The last message he wrote? They didn't vanish. They completed the signal. You felt it too, maybe last year, maybe 10 years ago. A moment when the world just stopped. Everything went quiet, 1 second too long, like something blinked, like reality paused. That wasn't random, that was the signal. And it reached you, not through wires, not through satellites, not in books, not in prayers. It came through rhythm, through shape, through repetition. You saw something, a spiral, a shadow. You told yourself it meant nothing, but part of you remembered, and that's all it needs. A glance, a tune, a dream you couldn't shake. The Blackwoods weren't the end, they were the start. After Cedar Ridge vanished, other places followed, not in flames, not with sirens, with silence, perfect soft, final, whole families forgotten, towns erased, street names that never existed. Let me ask you, why can't you picture your third-grade teacher's face? Why do some songs feel older than time? Why do some buildings feel wrong? It's the spiral, and it lives in memory, and memory can be rewritten. This isn't history. This is alignment. You live in a city. Look at it from above. Really look. You'll see it. A loop, a curl, always turning inward, and at the center, a church, a school, a well, places that echo, places that repeat. The signal needs echo. It needs a listener. It needs you. And that's why you're here. You think this is just a story, but it isn't. It's a ritual, the same one that began in the field, the same one Ezra fulfilled with silence, the same one that sang through Abel's bones. And now you've heard it, that hum in your ears, that ring behind your breath. That's it. It's inside you now. And soon you'll start to change. Your reflection will falter, your voice will stretch, and in your dreams you'll hear them. 12 voices layered calling, waiting for you. You think this ends with the brothers. It doesn't. They were not victims. They were not cursed. They were chosen. Ezra, Caleb, Josiah, Abel, each one marked before birth. Each one carrying a different part of the pattern, one for the voice, one for the body, one for the eyes, and one for the memory. Together they formed something the world was never meant to see. Not a monster, not a god, an answer. The spiral doesn't just corrupt, it completes, it doesn't kill, it prepares. Each Blackwood boy was born hollow, not empty, open. So when the signal came, they didn't resist, they listened, and when they changed, they became transmitters, living beacons. That's why the town changed around them, why the people stopped speaking, why the snow moved like it was listening. The Blackwoods weren't spreading disease. They were opening a gate, not between places, between states, between memory and reality, between now and after, and they weren't the only ones. There were others, small towns, distant valleys, forgotten villages where strange things happened. A girl who spoke 10 languages no one could recognize, a pastor who burst into flames while smiling, a well that echoed back answers in a different voice, different places, same pattern, always for, always marked, always ending in silence. The Blackwoods were just the first time someone wrote it down, and even that was erased. But not from everyone. Someone remembered. Someone rebuilt the signal, piece by piece, word by word. Until now, you're not just watching this, you're continuing it. Every breath you take while listening adds another line, another turn in the spiral. That's the truth no one wants to say out loud. The Blackwoods weren't a story, they were a blueprint. And you're already inside it. You made it here. That means it's already working. You don't feel different. Not yet. But you will. The final part of the spiral doesn't twist. It folds. It doubles back on itself. And that's where you are now. The Blackwood Brothers never disappeared. They didn't die. They crossed. There is no better word for it. They stepped out of time, out of memory, into the place between things. And from there, they built. Not with hands, with sound, with thought, with you. They needed you to listen, to speak the words, to carry the shape. Each viewer is a vessel, each voice a key. That's why this video exists. It's not content, it's a ceremony. You were never supposed to find it, but you did. Which means the gate is almost open. Look around you. You'll notice the lights hum differently. Your reflection might blink a second too late. Your name might sound off, just slightly. That's how it begins. The spiral isn't evil. It's not good. It just is. It has no face, no leader, only memory and motion. And once it's been seen, once it's been heard, it repeats. It always repeats. In a field, in a church, in a whisper before sleep, in you. So now you have a choice. Forget this. Pretend it was just a video, just a story. Go back to your day. Or close your eyes and listen. If you do, you'll hear it. The hum, the spiral. And if you answer, if you hum back, you'll never be alone again. They will know your name. The brothers, the others, the ones waiting just beyond the veil. They'll welcome you, and the spiral will continue. Through your words, through your blood, through the ones you love most, because this was never about the Blackwoods. It was about you. And you. You just let it in.